That might not work.
Good evening. Just let everyone know that we just came out of executive session for security, and I'll turn this over to Dr. Myers.
Hey, good evening. We are going to welcome to our meeting. We're going to get started October 22nd, Building and Grounds meeting. We are not holding a public meeting, but we will have a special meeting to discuss negotiations on October 22nd. We are going to take a look at number two. It is at 6 o'clock, Ruth. Take a look at number two once we dig into the agenda here. Let's see. We have one resignation, a transfer, and a transfer this month. So if we take a look at the agenda items, you will see, sorry, give me 1 second here. Yep. Underneath of personnel, you will see we have a resignation from a learning support teacher at the elementary building. We also are excited to announce that we have an appointment for the approval of our superintendent, which we'll talk about again as we dig into our consent agenda. We have a transfer of Quinn Tarosi. So Quinn is currently a fourth grade teacher who has requested a transfer to our vacant position at the middle school. So we will be posting for, I believe Quinn's position is anticipated at this moment to fill her position. We will leave her in that position until we have a replacement for her. So we currently have a substitute in the seventh grade position that she is transferring to, who has agreed to stay for as long as we need him. And then once we have Quinn's replacement, we'll provide a transition like we always do between the new hire and Quinn. And then we'll provide a transition between Quinn and the substitute in the seventh grade position. We have a support staff hire there for our autistic support classroom, some substitute nurses, a teacher mentor for our new teacher, physics teacher that we hired, some extracurricular contracts, and a volunteer boys basketball coach. So our consent agenda. Our minutes, unless I hear anyone say otherwise, minutes will go to consent approval for A and B. Bills payable will not go to consent, so 1, 2, and 3. But B through G can be consent unless I hear otherwise. Let's see, correspondence, old business, our personnel. Let's see, number 1 can be consent. Number 2 will not. Number 3, consent. 4, no. 5 is consent. 6 and 7 are no. 8 is consent. B, Sunday activity approval. Let's see. Justin, are they both? No, yeah, both are consent there. We'll talk about agenda items, but high school marching band performing at the Halloween parade on the 27th, and then the wrestling is a Sunday activity that we had talked about at the last board meeting. C is not consent. That is the contract for Critical Response Group. That is the company that was here presenting last month, and that contract will be covered under fully covered under PCCD. D would be consent. E would not. It's not consent. There's a fee there associated there. F. Nope, I apologize. Yes, E is not. F is not consent because that will require a vote. G, not consent. H, no. I, no. And J, consent.
We're not gonna go back through all of, we're not gonna go back through all the business items, correct?
Correct.
So we're gonna ask a question now. I don't know if you wanted to give a real quick brief on the thing we're voting for you for tomorrow, just to give a little update to the board so they have an idea.
It's the first.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's actually the first school board secretary professional development I will be going to. It is hosted by PSBA and it's a fee of $75. So what that costs at this point, or what it entails at this point, I'm really not sure. But I didn't want to sign up for it and register for it without having
Board approval.
been approved by the board. Might have any questions?
I don't.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions with what's not on discussion items? I don't know if there is. As far as it's not covered under the agenda for tonight for caucus.
Correct, but they're not discussion items for this evening. So if there is further discussion, that would occur tomorrow.
Okay.
Finances? Justin?
Okay, beginning with the general fund, we had a beginning balance of $10,803,053.12. We had revenue for the month of $8,866,439.39. We had a transfer to the cafeteria fund of $27,000. We had payroll expenditures of $1,148,420.30 and other expenditures of $2,711,351.86. leaving an ending balance of $15,782,720.35. Looking over the revenue, I'd like to give another shout out to all of our tax collectors. This was the month of September was the big month. That's when all the tax collection companies submit their payment to get the discount. So that's why the revenue is so large this month, standard, but I just definitely want to recognize them for getting the money to us. But everything else is pretty standard. If you have any specific questions on the revenue, please let me know. Okay, moving on to the expenditures. Again, very standard for this time of year. Our larger dollar amounts are our cyber charter, our contracted services, as well as our transportation. If you have any specific questions on any of the expenditures, please let me know. Okay, moving on to the cafeteria fund. We had a beginning balance of negative $35,646.15. We had revenue over the month of $56,619.20. We had a transfer from the general fund of $27,000. We had payroll expenditures of $51,543.33. And we had other expenditures of $94,127.54, leaving an ending balance of negative $97,697.82. Factoring in our federal and state reimbursement for the month, we're at $810.23. Looking at the revenue, very standard for this time of year. If you have any specific questions, please let me know. And then on to the expenditures. Again, very standard food expenditures for the cafeteria fund this month. If you have any specific questions, please let me know. All right, moving on to the capital reserve fund. We had a beginning balance of $484,365.62. We had interest revenue of $490.42, leaving an ending balance of $484,856.04. And last but not least, the scholarship fund. We had a beginning balance of $19,993.06, interest revenue of $1.68, and ending balance of $19,994.74.
All right. Thank you, Justin. And I jumped ahead and did consent early. So we'll dive into number 6 for chapter 339. So this is just an opportunity for me to take a minute to share that we have an upcoming plan that will be due in March of 2025. Chapter 339 is a plan that is mandated by the state that has to be developed by any sending school to an approved PDE approved CTE program, which we do to ACTI, in addition to our own approved programs. And so really what this plan does is it encompasses the mission, the vision, the curriculum for our guidance. And so essentially it centers around all of our career and future career readiness, K through 12. So how are we preparing our students for careers, post-secondary, all of those things beyond school? So that plan is established already within the district. And so at the end of the day, while there are some really good pieces to it, this is our opportunity to kind of revise and edit based upon our comp plan goals and make sure that everything is in alignment. And so at this point, what I really do need is we need a board member to participate in that committee. And so that will involve a few extra evenings, very similar to our comp planning sessions where we really take the time the plan is really established and there. We just need to establish some new goals and revise and kind of edit some components to it so that we're ready to board approve and then submit at the end of March in 2025. So off the top of my head right now, preliminary kind of planning anywhere from 3 to 4 meetings between now and potential board approval in March. I don't necessarily have those fleshed out time-wise yet, but can certainly provide that as we know which stakeholders are all going to be involved in that the development and revision of that plan. So I'm looking for an appointment tomorrow evening for someone to participate and be a board member who is a participant in that plan, that planning process.
So if there's anyone that wants to step up now, what's your opinion? If not, we'll definitely talk about tomorrow, or you can talk. Offline, you send an email saying, hey, I went home, check my schedule, I can support it, or whatever it is. I guess, like for myself, I would say right now it's good, but without dates, it's hard for me to say whether I could actually be there or not.
So what we typically do is once we have the group of people together, we send out a survey to determine like what evenings most people are available and how we work around everyone's schedule to ensure the availability of all. And so that's going to be a challenge for all stakeholders that are part of the process. And even with comp planning, we had participants who were able to come to who couldn't attend one evening but could attend all of the others. So we look to have the majority of the group available, if not everyone, but certainly pull the stakeholder group to determine the best times, nights that everyone would be available.
Okay. Does anybody want to volunteer for that now? I am willing to volunteer for it, if nobody else wants to. Go for it. Like, pretty quiet around the room. Okay, for now, we can pencil my name in. We'll talk to Travis offline.
Okay.
See if for some reason, if he really wants to do it or whatever. But for now, you can pencil me in for it.
Okay. I did link there just the current plan for anyone that would like to peruse that.
Space bar for any of that.
but
Okay,
you're on
good,
here.
sorry.
You're good. Okay, Justin, Act One.
Okay, so it's a requirement for the state to provide the Act One index by the end of September, which they have done. So for the budget year coming up, 25, 26, believe it or not, the base index is 4%. Our adjusted index is 5.4. So that's the first step in starting the budget process. And in my plan, unless I'm directed otherwise by the board, is that I will put together the resolution to be on next month's meeting, stating that we are not going above either one. Well, the rate that you don't go above is the adjusted, which is the 5.4. I feel pretty safe that I can assume that is the case. So I will have that on next month's agenda for approval. But this is the time of year that we get to work with budget until the rest of the year. So, but any questions related to that? Just for context, last year was 5.3 base index with an adjusted of 7.2. So, any questions, anything related to that? All right, I think the next one's mine as well. So the snow removal contract, we did have this in place this past year, and it worked very well. Due to the basically the layout of the middle school, that's the first focal point of this contract. The equipment we currently have is not really, I mean, we're able to do it. We're just not able to do it in a quick fashion. And those mornings that are, whether it's the delay or it's a little tricky, it was definitely beneficial to have this company on call. And they did come and take care of things in a very good manner. So we're asking for the exact same type of contract that we went in place last year. And they have not adjusted their rates at all based on compared to last year. So it's our recommendation to move forward with the same process and contract that we had last year in place. So is there any specific questions related to that piece? And the other thing I'll add is if they finish up the middle school, that we're allowed to utilize them anywhere on campus. As you see here, the minimum charge is 4 hours total, 3.5 hours of snow removal and a half-hour travel time. So if they finish in 2.5 hours, then we can utilize them anywhere else on campus where it's needed. So we did. It wasn't, I mean, relatively speaking, it was pretty mild, was a pretty easy winter, but yes, we did utilize them. Yep.
So speaking of snow, um, I'm trying to avoid this topic at all costs. However, I would like to potentially engage in a conversation just about handling weather-related closures. And so in years past, we applied for FID days, our flexible instructional days, which we no longer have to apply for because remote learning days we are allowed to use them and not have to call them FID. So in past practice, we have potentially, for most situations, we have when we've had a snow day, we have had true snow days. And so that it was an off day, there was no instruction occurring, it was a snow day, and then we utilized a makeup day in the future and utilize that particular day, whether it was in person or sometimes we offered remote instruction, depending on when those makeup days were because of trips that people had planned, because they often sandwiched a holiday of some sort. And so I know it was brought up last month, just in a brief conversation, wanted to engage in conversation with you. I have had some feedback from administrators and teachers, but wanted to get a feel for the direction as far as opinion opinions related to remote days versus true snow days and utilizing our makeup days.
What's the feedback from the teachers and the principals?
Mixed. But I think a lot of people are okay. I don't know that anyone really has a strong preference one way or the other. I think we enjoy the sentiment that students get to enjoy a snow day. So that we like that, but I think we've heard some feedback from community members and some conversations in here that potentially a remote day is more favorable over utilizing a makeup day in the future. And so I don't know that our staff has a strong opinion one way or the other. I think they just want to know in advance because I think sometimes the decision came a little bit later in years past, and I want to just kind of have a plan before this hits us.
And last year there was an issue where there was a makeup day that was used where people made arrangements, correct?
So a lot of our makeup
So-
days are around holidays, whether it's President's Day or Easter. Trying to think of some of the others. They just Thanksgiving, so they tend to be taken away from those breaks, so to speak. Those are when our built-in makeup days are. So in the event that we provide that true snow day, the makeup day we'd either be bringing students into school physically, face to face, or providing a remote instruction day, which is what we've done in the past on those makeup days.
Did you ever have feedback, Dr. Myers, on the effectiveness or whatever then too? What's the feedback?
Are you unmuted? I'm not. I mean, I think anyone would argue that a face-to-face day has more benefit than a remote instruction day. I think that we utilized the flexibility of the remote instruction days because oftentimes those days sandwiched a holiday in which lots of people tend to have travel plans. And so it provided people that flexibility to still participate in school and make that day up, but not have to attend in person.
To you and the administration what you guys would recommend to go forward, but I think there's this is me goodness to exercising those days remotely, because if we were coming to an environment again where we have to execute that for a long period of time, at least we're doing it at some kind of random period where we're exercising, making sure everything's good to go, connectivity is working, teachers can deliver instruction, kids can understand. So I think it's good to just exercise every once in a while, but that's just my 2 cents. I don't know if it benefits one or the other.
So, and I will share one of the challenges of one of the other reasons that we didn't have the remote instruction day on the actual snow day. It's because not all of our students K-12 take devices home. And so that requires some planning and preparation in advance for teachers to make sure that those students have materials in order to participate educationally at home, whether it's iPads or work to complete in some way, shape, or form. And so in order to do that, we almost have to have a plan in place if we're going to hold a remote instruction day when we have snow and not utilize the makeup day. So it's snowing, we're going to use remote instruction so we don't lose a day. We really have to have that plan in place almost 24 hours in advance, which becomes very tricky. Obviously, I'm not a weather person, nor did I go to school to do that. So we rely heavily on those resources to make those decisions. So the way that we've done that in the past is that we have had our elementary teachers have had plans, but really they're review and practice. And so kids are provided, we have kind of emergency plans ready to go in the event that we choose to use a remote instruction day. But I hesitate with that too, because again, it's not a true instructional day in my mind. It becomes more homework at home. And so that's kind of where I do appreciate having we're going to call the true snow day, but then utilize this makeup day as that remote instruction day during the actual makeup day that we have time to plan and prepare for what that's going to look like. So I'll go back to the admin team and have them talk to buildings and I think that's the direction probably we will go. In that we will hold true snow days, but then plan for remote instruction days so that we have time to plan and prepare. And then kids have the opportunity to enjoy the snow, if it's a good snow. Okay.
That was my one feedback. I was just thinking of to the very first.
Yes. So I, again, can't predict what that will look like. However, I think just having that plan, and then I think that day we can immediately even communicate when that flexible instruction day would occur in the future. And then again, teachers and staff can kind of plan and prepare for what that will look like. I think from a planning perspective and making sure that we have something meaningful and purposeful as far as instruction and not really losing the day by just kind of planning emergency plans, I think is probably the best way to approach that. But we'll get some additional feedback. And then I think with this feedback, be able to make a decision moving forward and put a plan in place.
Anybody else have any comments? Or anything?
Yeah. From what we saw last year, it seems to me like the likelihood of an in-person makeup day being scheduled is low. Because the day last year, there was, I can't remember, 40%, 50% of staff called off or something like that.
We had one scenario, it was a last minute change. I believe that was President's Day. And again, I think that's the tricky part of scheduling those makeup days.
Yeah.
Backing the holidays, and that might be something that we need to look at moving forward, which is on our topic of discussion this evening, as we develop that calendar. I personally am a huge fan of face-to-face instruction and think that anytime we can have that face-to-face instruction, it is incredibly crucial that we get that time. And so maybe as we build out that 25-26 calendar, we take a look at some of the days that we potentially build in as makeup that are not backed up to those holidays, to make it a little bit more to make it easier for families to plan travel and spend time with family and friends.
Well, that's the thing. I understand that scheduling is tricky and you're not going to be able to please everybody. But in the event that you have a snow day, from a parent's perspective and a student's perspective, wouldn't you rather have your holidays free? And a true snow day, if it's really snowing, you still have time to go out and play in the snow and come in and do your hour or two of work, right?
Come inside. I hear what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I think the challenge for us is that if we call it the morning of,
Yeah.
our K through 6 students do not have devices at home.
I got
And
it.
so we have to have materials ready for them, and we won't necessarily have
Well,
materials.
in the snow events where it may be possible to foresee that, you see there's a big snowstorm coming and school's going to be closed for 2 days.
Yes.
Let's utilize it.
I 100% agree. I don't know how often that.
Well,
I don't know how often that
I
happens,
understand. I understand, but I think it would be better to lean in that direction and not be, because you have these makeup days where half the teachers are away for people are away for holidays. I'm not sure that that's the most effective for learning.
Yep. No, I agree. So we'll take a look at, and we'll kind of play each scenario. We have the devices available to us. We just do not send them home K through 6 anymore. And that has been a huge success. And I don't know that I necessarily want to change that. But they are available to us that if we had to send them home, Josh, I'm kind of looking at you for confirmation on that. K through 6, if we had to plan in advance, we could send those devices home. Okay, so this I just want to, anything else, weather-related makeup day? I don't want to jump ahead there. Okay. So Mr. Defoe is happy to come in November and have this further conversation. He was unable to be here this evening. It's his daughter's senior night. And so he was didn't want to miss that, obviously. So I did share with him that I would take this opportunity to provide you a quick kind of update and some information regarding an opportunity that we have for our students and what that might look like and sound like, give you some time to process that, and then potentially bring him in November that you can ask any additional questions that you might have, or ask them this evening. I can go back and get that information if we need to, and provide you with further information regarding the topic. So lacrosse has been a topic of conversation occasionally throughout the district. We have always, it's always been kind of the conversation that we're too small to offer lacrosse. Our fields are not prepped for it. There's a cost associated, and just a lot of different reasons why, as a school district, we have not opted to provide this to our students. We do have an opportunity to participate with another school district in what we call a co-op. And so what that would mean is that there are kind of some rules and regulations for what this looks like. It has to be a boundary school district. And we have one right now that has potentially agreed to allow us, our students, to join their lacrosse team in a co-op. And so this would be boys and girls lacrosse. The way that this works is that it is not a Bermudian sponsored sport. So they are playing for that other school's team. So they wear their uniforms, they participate as that school district athlete. And so while we certainly may not love the sound of that, at the end of the day, it is an opportunity for them to participate in a sport that they love. But the co-op, they become that team's player, not Bermudian. So right now we have other independent, swimming, we have swimmers who swim independently, but they swim for Bermudian because it's Justin, tell me the difference between independent and co-op.
Explaining this.
So when they're competing individually and representing Bermudian Springs as a swimmer, as a bowler, as a golfer. What was the other one that you said that we have?
This was brought up during girls wrestling also, right? Whether they would be wearing.
Yes,
another-
whether it would be a co-op or our own team, whereas right now we're forming yes. But with the co-op, they are the other school, they are the other school's athlete in that scenario. Otherwise we can't provide it at all. And so those are our options, because you can't be an independent lacrosse player. So what does that mean for us? Right now, it would require, the only thing it would require of us is $100 PIAA application fee. So we would be responsible for paying the $100 and submitting the application. As far as, which is no different than really even some of our independents, transportation to and from practices is solely the responsibility of the student and the family.
How many students? Do you know?
Right now, Mr. Defoe is saying anywhere from 2 to 4.
Sounds like a team.
Okay. And then the idea of the co-op is that the co-op is in effect until either school decides they no longer want to participate. And so if the other school district gets to a point where they say we no longer want to participate, they can, that sport is just no longer an option for our students. Unless we had another school district that was willing to participate in the co-op. So we need direction as far as, do we want to pursue the co-op? Because in order to plan and prepare and fill out the application and get things in place from a PIAA standpoint, we have to have that approval in November's board meeting in order to begin kind of that application, and it will take that long to get us up and ready for spring. Correct. $100 total.
It's an application fee that goes.
Yes. The other thing just to keep in mind, there are some little caveats with this. And so, and I know that these seem like small things, but they're not small things. They're big things to kids and families. When it comes to sports awards, there are no, so they would not receive awards at the other school district. They would not be a part of their sports banquet. And we don't necessarily offer those awards because it's not a Bermudian sponsored sport. Another just odd but thing to think about is that when our seniors,
Right, we could recognize them. Right, is there something stopping?
that would be a great question for Mr. Defoe, but I mean, again, you could recognize them, but you have potentially one player. So I don't know what that looks like from an award standpoint. The other piece, again, it's a small thing and something we would work through, but our senior banners are typically only provided to Bermudian athletes. Now our independents receive banners because they swim or they bowl or golf for Bermudian, but these again would be students that don't necessarily participate in Bermudian sports.
Are we allowed to know who the participating school is? Well, I mean, I guess, I think.
Mr. Defoe wasn't ready to share that piece. He really kind of wanted to get some direction first, and then I think we can.
Does that other school provide the equipment and everything, or is that another Defoe question?
No, so yes, they would provide, and really typically in it, just like any other sport, like sometimes, I mean, like golf, you're providing your own golf clubs. And so typically in lacrosse, you buy your own stick and helmet, those sorts of things. But obviously the uniform and warm-ups and all of that would be that school districts. They would be wearing that school, yes.
Sure. Okay.
So all the financial obligation falls with the hosting district and we only are responsible for $100. That's where our responsibility is.
Correct. We do not do anything as far as the coaches are concerned. We're not responsible for paying coaches.
And I can't see let the kids participate if that's something they want to do.
Can everybody make sure that you're unmuting when you're talking?
The biggest thing though, and I know this has been important to the board, they are not Bermudian, they are not representing Bermudian Springs.
I think as
That's
long
the
as
biggest difference.
I think as long as the parents understand it, the athlete understands it, it's made clear to the parents and the student when they sign up that this is the expectation, we're just being clear. So that way they don't think, oh, well, you know, in my senior year, I'm going to have a banner and they're not going to have one. And then you don't want to disappoint the kids. You just want to let them know that this is how it's going to be. But $100 for an application fee and no financial responsibility on the district. I can't think of anything.
Well, one of my questions for Mr. Defoe is what impact does he think this might have on spring sports? He doesn't necessarily think it will have right now, he knows of about 2 to 4. That doesn't mean that additional students may not come out and have the desire to potentially participate. But as of right now, based on his kind of quick conversations and feedback and judgment, he doesn't believe it will have a huge impact. Obviously, it's an impact if any athlete of ours goes somewhere else. But at the end of the day, I think what we all want is for our kids to do what they're passionate about. And if this is an opportunity for someone who's passionate about lacrosse to play lacrosse, just the other tricky thing to navigate here is that a student may participate as a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and then all of a sudden that other school district may decide to back out of the co-op, and that kid's senior year, they do not have a spring sport, or at least that lacrosse as a spring sport. And again, I think if we're educating and communicating all of those different scenarios with families, that really is a decision that the family needs to make if this is something that we choose to.
I have a quick question. Here at Firm, we can't participate in 2 sports. What if we have a student participating in lacrosse as a co-op What season is lacrosse?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Spring.
Spring. So you have a student who wants to participate in track, and they also want to participate in lacrosse. How is that going to work? Because if it's not a berm sponsor, what would that look like?
They're still participating in a high school PIAA sport, and so we would not allow them to participate in one here and the lacrosse co-op. It would have to be one or the other.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. I thought when they built the multi-purpose field, the one set of lines was for if lacrosse was ever added.
There are 0 lacrosse lines on any of our fields.
It has the proper dimensions to be if it needed to be.
Yes, because soccer is your biggest field. So there's soccer lines, field hockey lines, and football lines.
So we just have to repaint if we ever did lacrosse.
Yes.
So you want to know if we should,
So at
So
this
the vote
point,
then-
we would potentially be adding a vote at the November board meeting, but I can have Mr. Defoe come on Monday to caucus to just share any further information or discussion before you vote on Tuesday.
yeah, it's a good idea. I like to hear his, unless you know his recommendation.
I think I think he's bringing it to me because he thinks it's a good opportunity for, especially the particular students that has had conversations with families and the students. I think that's one of the reasons that he was pursuing it, because he knew that these kids had a strong interest in lacrosse, and it just wasn't something that we felt like we had the capacity to offer, based on, again, our size, the cost, and the number of students that we have participating in spring sports. So would you like him to attend on Monday
I think so.
Yes.
in the November meeting? Okay. Right. Life Touch. This is not anything that requires a vote. But I just felt like it was important to put this on your radar. And I am looking for some potential support here. Life Touch, for the last several years has been incredibly difficult to work with. Not only have they been difficult to work with from a student standpoint, it has posed challenges with our yearbook production and our staff photo IDs. They print all of our photo IDs for us, and it has been a massive headache. I have contacted multiple people at Life Touch from varying degrees within the company to share some frustrations and some examples of that. Just recently, our high school retake makeup day, which is an incredibly important day because we need those makeup photos to hit our yearbook deadlines. So this happened last year as well. I'll just put that on your radar. They just didn't show up. And so when the high school reached out to them, they blamed it on us. And we were able to share the documentation in which we had communicated the dates, and they had replied back to us. And of course, it was apologies all up and down last year. So because we can't make our yearbook deadline, there are now late fees that we will incur as a result. Last year, they paid them. I made it clear that they were going to pay them. This year, they are not just as gracious as they were last year in owning their mistakes. In addition to that, we had the last 2 or 3, I guess probably 2 or 3 years since I've been planning the professional development days, we have our staff photo IDs taken their staff professional development day back. They are to be here and ready to go and start snapping photos at 7:30. We didn't get started until 10 o'clock this year because of issues that they were having. In addition to that, it's now October and we still have staff members that do not have staff IDs and not at official staff IDs. We have created temporary ones in the meantime for those who've not been able to get them as a result. So it's just been an ongoing battle. I know that Life Touch is a huge, well-known picture company for students and families. But at this point, we would really kind of like the blessing again. This is more because I know that we've always used Life Touch. We would really like to start reaching out. We know some other school districts that have utilized other school picture companies and have had some great success. I think Life Touch has just had a tremendous amount of turnover and they are lacking people and support. We really feel like there are some other local companies that, again, have been in other school districts that we've been in contact with, that they've had success. And so, and at the same costs. And so we're really looking for something very comparable to what Life Touch would be. We really feel like it is time to maybe look for some other options. And so I kind of wanted to share that with you, give you the why behind. We really feel like it's time to pursue some different options. We know that there's a lot of risk involved with that, and we need to do our homework and educate ourselves in what that looks like, but feel strongly at this point that that is the direction that we'd like to head. And can certainly keep you posted as we kind of navigate and research those different companies and places. But we've had a lot of headaches with Life Touch, and it's impacting staff, students, and the amount of time that we're investing in trying to get them to do their jobs has been quite frustrating. So just wanted to kind of give you a heads up there in case anyone or you hear grumblings or we're navigating through that. I think they were in this week, I believe, today. Today was picture retake day for the high school, the retake for the retake. But we will already have missed our yearbook deadline. That was a crucial time for us. And so now we will just have to incur, they're not tremendous. It's just the principle of the fact that this is the second year for the yearbook issue. This is either the second or the third year that we've had the beginning of the year challenges and really just want to kind of see what else is out there. Okay. Number 12, 25-26 school calendar, just another item that I'm putting on here to kind of keep on your radar. We will, Shelley starts to put together school calendar for the 25-26 school year right around this time frame. I know last year Shane I think we had 3 different options for calendars. We're going to kind of start that process this month and potentially share some draft calendars with you in November for next school year. One thing that we really want to kind of take a look at, and this kind of goes into the snow makeup day conversation as well, but PD has changed. It used to be the 180 and 990 hours, instructional hours for school days. That has changed, and it's or 180 or 990 hours. When we take a look at our instructional minutes, all of our buildings are well over the 990 hours. And so that doesn't mean that we want to take away instructional days. But as I've shared and we continue to talk about the increasing demands right now between trainings and mandates and just all the things that we have to do, we do feel like this provides us maybe an opportunity. There's a month, I think it's March. March is a month where we really just have nothing for staff. And so really kind of maybe want to take a look at strategically placing and maybe looking at some of our PD days moving forward and kind of where they're placed and how we're utilizing them. One of the things that I'm doing this month, we have 2 building reps at each building. Teachers would love to just kind of get their feedback and their perspective. It doesn't mean that we're going to listen and we're going to hear some of the things that they think would be super helpful and a benefit in the calendar and get some feedback from them. But then I'd also just kind of be asking each of you if there are things that you want us to be thinking about as far as the academic calendar. We will look to potentially approve the 25-26 academic calendar. I believe we did it in February of last year, which was a little bit later than what we typically do. So I would hope that by December, January-ish, we might have a good draft that we'd be ready to approve in January so that families can start planning for the upcoming school year. Questions about that? Okay, I'm done. It's your turn.
Okay. All right, the next item is board committees. So the update on this is I owed you names and everything for moving forward with the next committee, which is going to be policy committee. That's going to stand up this month. So those individuals will get together and they're going to elect a chairperson. A lot of the framework and everything else has been built out. The bylaws are starting and stuff like that. I'll name the individuals and I'll talk a little bit more. So the first one's going to be Travis. He's going to be one of the committee board members. And then the other one's going to be Mary. And then the other one is going to be myself. So those will be the three that are going to stand up for this committee. And then we'll probably talk about the other possible committees later on in the future. But this one is, trying to streamline again the efficiency of getting policies looked at and approved through the board in an efficient manner, right? So there's a few that are way out of date that need attention, obviously 10 years ago. There's some that's been brought up to attention recently that because maybe something happened recently that need attention also because it's kind of out of date. So we're going to work with the administration. We're going to work with superintendent, assistant superintendent, those parties involved to make sure that we're getting these policies looked at, vetted, and then brought up to the board for final approval in a timely fashion. So any questions about that? There'll be more guidance to follow with that, depending on the first meeting with the committee members. Yeah.
And we did not have a SEER committee meeting last month, but we have one scheduled for October 17th. We've been holding those in the boardroom. And as of now, that meeting is still on the calendar. And Travis is not here for ACT unless maybe he is here.
He zoomed into the last meeting, I think.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, he is here. Travis,
hear me?
are you able to give us an update on ACTI?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Thank you. Let's try that one more time, Travis.
I can hear you.
Just happened.
Yep, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I had to turn my volume up.
Okay. So yes, we had the ACTI meeting. We're in the process of resumes and interviews for the new director. And they are still in the process of looking for either ground or a building for a new facility. They have a few prospects that they're looking at. And they also asked that if we can get a more discrete number or a more definitive number that we are contributing to, so that they're trying to get that from all the schools so that they know what their budget's going to be.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
If you don't, Travis, I'll reiterate for you here and correct me if there's anything that you feel like I need to change. So what he just shared is that the ACTI committee is still searching for property to potentially purchase for a new facility. What ACTI is looking for at this point, or the JOC is looking for at this point, is a definitive number, monetary value that the board is willing to contribute. This has been I've had some conversations with Justin. I have shared with in conversations that I've been having our current allotment that we feel we have, which was $250,000 for 10 years. 20 years for 20 years. So that based on our tax increase I'm going to let you go ahead and share what.
So the the information that we've been provided so far was an illustration based off of borrowing $10 million. Okay. And what that is for us, for every $10 million, it's $100,000 that we would owe. Okay. So based off of the approval of last year's budget, let me back up, this current year's budget, the amount that was decided was $250,000 is what's going to be put aside for ACTI. Okay. So that's where the $250,000.
Okay.
When Dr. Myers came back from last month's special meeting with the superintendents, there was some differing of opinions of the value of what they're looking for. Okay. So the discussion that occurred with them was anywhere between 60 and 80 million. So what that means is that $250,000 number now becomes $600,000 to $800,000 for us. And that's where I was like, what? Like, that's not even in the ballpark.
Right.
That's like a totally different conversation. So they wanted Dr. Myers to provide at this point, what was the number? Well, our number is $250,000.
Right.
Because we
Yeah.
haven't had any other conversations at all. So
And they do,
apparently there's other districts that have like a 4-year plan of raising taxes to get to their amount. But that amount is not solidified right now. So
Right.
the reality of it is their plan looks good on paper, and the fact of that's how much they want to raise and that's how much money they're committing. But until their boards make that decision every single year for the next 3 years, since they already did it year one,
Correct.
there's no guarantee they're going to have that money.
right.
So ultimately, right now, the commitment that we are providing compared to the other Adams County school districts that are participating, we're on the low end.
We are.
Sure.
Yeah.
We are.
Okay.
We are the lowest.
Yes, by far.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they understand that
So
they're all gonna
I'm
be
not
different.
sure where the breakdown of the communication came from, because 60 to 80 million, that to me, that's when you go from your illustration, and I get it was just to provide information and numbers, was 10 million. But then to think that you're going to spend 60, 80 million on a building. And again, I want to be clear, like, this isn't coming across that we are not a supporter of technical education and all of that, because I think we've proven that we 100% are. The reality of it is the price tag associated with it, with the amount of kids that we're talking about, that's a huge decision for you as a board to make, because that's, I mean, it's not in line with what we pay our debt service currently for our own buildings here, but it's getting darn close to getting there. So it'd be a whole nother additional debt service payment. And that is for 20 years. That's not like 1 year or 2 year and you're done.
Well,
No.
and I want
That
to, I also,
continues.
not only do you have the construction costs, but then you're also, I mean, you're hiring a full admin team, you're hiring a nurse, you're hiring a counselor, and I'm not saying that these conversations haven't occurred. I've not been part of them until this point. But I think that the realization of that is why I think that number has continued to increase.
So on top of the 600,000 to 800,000 just for the construction in the building, then you have your tuition pieces, which Dr. Myers is getting to, on if they hire a whole new staff. If, like, depending upon that, I mean, our current rate right now is right around 180,000. And a building that size, you're looking to expand the amount of kids that you're going to get there. So you're taking additional kids plus additional cost of staff and everything else. So minimally, I think you're looking at doubling your tuition rate as well. Minimally. I don't know
Right.
that for a fact, but depending upon how this is all playing out. So they're just some of my concerns.
I don't think
It's a lot of money.
they're
And
not
at this point, I don't think we as a district are prepared to take that on. So again, I know it's their wish and it's a big wish to get the 68 million building. And I know there's been discussion that let's see what the state can do for us. Let's see what the federal government does for us. It's all great,
they're
but
entertaining all
to commit
avenues.
to that dollar amount and not have something in hand that you have the money from the state or you have the money from the federal government, that's a huge risk. So that when she shared the information she received from the discussion, and I was like, I just want to be real with them. I mean, that's where we're committed, $250,000, because that's what they wanted to know. At this point today, that's the commitment that I can feel good. Unless you as a board direct me, nope, it's going to be 600,000 a year. Okay, well, we got some big things we got to change.
Yeah.
But
No,
that's
and
just
I-
from my perspective.
And they want this number by yesterday?
So there is a timeline because the funding that they have procured for, they have a $500,000
Right. So
Grant
that
they got.
from the commissioners, and that's ESSER money.
Yep.
That expire, they have to use it or they lose it. And they were looking to buy land
That number
using
doubled.
that.
That number doubled though from a few months ago, from 30 to 60 million per building. I've never heard it that high before.
Okay.
So that's new news. Did Sean ever come and brief the board?
He has not. And so I asked him about that, and he said that he was holding off until he had more definitive information. So I'm
Things have
happy
changed.
to.
The dollar amount has changed. So I think we should have him here at the next meeting if possible. But I think we should have him here at the next meeting if possible, just to go over some of the updates of the direction they're going. Because it sounds like we were kind of caught off guard with what other school districts were putting towards it.
Well, and
So-
I think my perception was from meeting with the other, and again, this was my first superintendent meeting. So, but my perception was that several of the school districts that were in attendance had been planning and preparing for this for quite some time. And so I don't know where, again, that's just that was what it appeared. I mean, they're all in a much different position based on the conversations that we had, than I think we are.
Can you guys hear me?
Saving up for it and talked about this years ago.
No, what we're saying
In a
is
school district.
they have a plan in place. They haven't saved the money yet. It's all based on additional tax increases in future years. So like two of the districts that I'm aware of, talk to the business managers, they have a 4-year plan to gather up not the whole amount of money by any stretch, but to get in a position they feel is comfortable to say they can commit. And these districts are committing a lot more than what we would be, because it's based on a proportionate amount of how it's split out and how many kids you have there and all that. But the bottom line is, again, they've done it year one, both the districts I'm talking about, but they have 3 more years that they have to get approval from their boards to set that money and that percentage aside just for the ACTI build. Not anything to do with tuition, just the building.
Correct. And this is one of those things I was talking about several months ago, that in order for us to even contribute, we'd have to look at a tax plan of how we go after it, not necessarily allotting a certain dollar amount per year, like 250,000, whatever it is, but like a commitment to stay on track. I know things change, board dynamics change, everything like that. And that's what's going to be tough for those schools. But to try to stick to a plan, say, hey, as a school district, we're going to commit to this over a 4-year, 5-year plan to meet the dollar amount. But the only, like I said, the thing I did not know about is the building itself, like doubled in price. It was not that high before. So that's new news.
Can you guys hear me?
Trying to even budget $250,000. So.
Can I chime in again?
Would we maybe consider not going that direction and maybe doesn't Biglerville go to Cumberland Perry? Would that be a savings for us if we took someone that way, or Yorkville Tech? I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know the details involved.
I mean, I haven't been involved in the nitty-gritty discussion by any stretch. I mean, I'll let Dan speak to it, but I would say from the outside, if we start splitting away from Adams County, I mean, we don't have that many districts in Adams County to begin with. If we start splitting and saying we're not interested in going this way, then I don't think it would be advantageous to even look at it as a countywide thing, to be honest. Now,
That based on Travis, go ahead.
Yes. I was just wanted to say that they're not expecting, and they know that every school is different in what they can contribute, and they weren't necessarily expecting us to come back and say, "Oh, we can do, 600,000." They when at the meeting I explained to them, I didn't remember the exact amount, but I told them it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 200,000. So you're specifying the 250. They just wanted the number so that they knew they could get each school, so they knew what each school was participating in to see how far off they are. And they are looking at every avenue, like funding from the state and all that other stuff too. We had some stuff in an executive session I wish I could share because it was some decent news, but once that becomes public, we can talk about that. But it's they just needed to know the number so that they know where they're at and how far off they are.
I'll summarize for you, Travis, here because it's not the volume's not super loud.
Okay.
Sorry, I have to start over here. 250 is our number based on the current conversations that we've had and the tax increase and the amount that we set aside for the school year. Really the conversation was, is you are as strong as your weakest link. And so who is that the weakest link at this moment? And right now, I mean, it is that 250 number, and that's kind of the hard line at the moment. The conversation really has been that doesn't mean that it can't change in the future, but in order for them to kind of plan and determine what next steps they can take based on the funding they currently have, that is our number. So it's definitely, I'm happy to invite Sean to come in November and maybe share a little more information and I'll reach out to him and see what he can offer for information and just kind of why some of the information is differing from what it originally started. And it could just be that we now have the actual plan and we're moving forward, or they want to move forward with it on top of the land, equipment. And I think, again, once you start adding in all of those factors, that could be where some of those increase, but it is double. If it's double, I don't know. I don't recall myself what it was when these conversations initially started, but I will reach out to Sean. It sounds like, I mean, again, he can't share at the moment, but it sounds like there's some positive news that they will share at some point that could impact all of the decisions. But right now, and Travis, just kind of sharing with you, my communication has been that our contribution at this point is 250. Until we have additional conversations or are able to kind of plan and prepare with more information. I keep muting myself. I should have had an opportunity to ask questions or seek any kind of clarification on any of the agenda items that we didn't discuss during our discussion items. So before we move into that, I just wanted to revisit if there was anything that anyone needed clarification or had additional questions on.
I don't think that I did. The ones that I had questions on, you already went over. So, and then Jen talked about what her thing was for. Yeah, I don't think there's anything
Okay.
else.
Okay.
All right. Oh,
Oh.
go ahead.
So I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to make everyone aware that our Bermudian Springs Foundation, our Equal Fund. Justin, quick question for you. Is this something that for our day of, for the Adams County Community Foundation, would we be able to receive donations towards our part of whatever financial amount we would need to contribute towards ACTI? Would people be able to donate to the district
Are you aware of
for
that?
that?
Well, I mean, not this, I mean, we'd have to set up a separate fund if we want to do something in that regard.
Okay.
Because remember, the amount of this Eagles fund, we only get less than, I think, 4% of, so that fund has to be, I mean, it's right around $50,000 right now. We only get 4% of that. So that has to be, so I would say no, because that fund's not set up if you want to have a separate fund for ACTI or something like that. And we'd have to talk with Ralph to see if that's even an applicable thing for that. But as far as this is concerned and what you're about to talk about, I would say that's not something that we could do this year for that.
Okay, thanks. I was just trying to help figure something out. So with the Bermudian Springs Foundation, otherwise known as the Eagles Fund, I have a message from our chairperson, Carrie Nace, to let everybody know that the Bermudian Spring Foundation, also known as the Eagles Fund, will be participating in the Adams County Giving Spree on November 7th. The Eagle Fund works to enhance and strengthen opportunities and experiences for Bermudian Springs School District by fostering a foundation for lifelong success and collective growth. The Community Foundation will accept Giving Spree gifts by mail between now and November 7th. The Eagles Fund number is 25 in the attached brochure. And there's a brochure here that I can share with everybody. And you guys can all take a quick look at that if you wanted to. On November 7th, between 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock, you can drop off a completed donation form and a gift at the Gettysburg Time on Fairfield Road, the Harbaugh Thomas Library in Biglerville, the Trone Memorial Library in East Berlin, Thunderbolt Stadium in Littlestown, and the Hart Center in New Oxford. There's no need to leave your car. Volunteers will be on hand to accept your contribution. Thank you, and thank you personally, and cheer you on. And you can make your gift securely online at accfgivingspree.org between midnight and 11:59 p.m. on November 7th. So thank you to anyone who would be considering donating.
All right, thank you. All right. What's that? Okay. All right, now we'll start with finishing out with public comment. Again, when you come up, of course, not who you are, of course, sign into the sheet, and we'll have a 5-minute timer for you for your speaking. So, yep. Come on up.
Start the timer.
Start the timer.
Start the
Got it.
timer, please. Couple things before I get to my main question. I'll put my 2 cents in about the FID days. As a grandparent trying to help my grandkids with work that was assigned to them that day, it's a waste of taxpayer money based on the amount of education those kids received for a full paid day. So looking at other options, certainly, and I don't know why we've had this mentality that we have to be done with graduation before Memorial Day, extend the school year, whatever. And also, have you looked at the cost of lost wages to people who are on hourly jobs with the district, your cafeteria folks, people who don't work because there's a day less paid. If they're only working 175 days, they're losing 5 days of pay. So there's a lot of things there, but I really am not a fan of remote learning. Just want to just make up the days and be done with it. Second thing, now that you're adding a policy committee, and you all know my feelings about the agenda and how I felt the curriculum meeting went. I hope as we're moving forward, we're making some improvements on what will the public see prior to that meeting as a public agenda so that we know we would like to attend and participate. If it's a cryptic line on a draft agenda, it really is not transparent. So hopefully, as you move now to adding a policy committee, that there's substance to the agendas that are posted, and also looking at where those agendas are posted. Right now, there's a standard procedure of where the board, caucus, and the regular board meeting, and then sometimes there's a column there for special, but you have to go to another page to get the agenda for the curriculum. Put them all together, so if I'm looking at what's happening, they're all there on that same page where this agenda is for tonight and tomorrow night. And speaking of tomorrow night's agenda, there was no discussion tonight about the major item that's on the agenda, which I thought was really a missing opportunity to voice, what do you plan to do tomorrow night as you roll out Dr. Sterner's appointment? Are you going to talk about the process that you use, what skill set he's bringing? His name wasn't even mentioned tonight in this caucus, which I thought was, if you're making $1 million commitment to an employee, and at the caucus, no one is saying anything about that item, I'm shocked to hear that there wasn't something said, even that his name was verbalized, and this is what you're planning to do tomorrow night when you have that item on the agenda. So those are a couple of my observations. Did I use up my 5 minutes yet? Oh, okay. I will also put my 2 cents in for the tech school. I would strongly advise that this district remain a committed member of the Adams County Career and Tech Program. Yes, there are going to be financial costs, but this conversation has been going on for over 50 years. The first time there was a vote on a career and tech school in Adams County, there were 75 school districts there, Huntington Township, Lattimore Township, every township. So that tells you how long ago this conversation has been going. And it's time that Adams County make that commitment, and this district needs to remain part of that. Yes, it'll be a financial conversation, but being a part of it is important for all the students. So thank you.
My name is Deanna Nelson. I'm a resident in the district, but I'm actually going to speak to you as a teacher today. You were discussing the snow makeup days, and I do know last year we had a very last minute day that involved a definite increase of teachers who were out for whatever reasons. But I do want to just put out there that up until last year, we've been doing, I think one of the reasons that the remote days have become a thing is prior to that, when we did have makeup days 5-6 years ago, pre-pandemic, there was a definite serious amount of absenteeism, when we had makeup days close to those holiday weekends. And one thing, you're never going to make anyone happy or everyone happy, not parents, teachers, etc. But one thing teachers will all agree on, it is very hard to teach content when a third of your class is gone. And that's what we were seeing when we were trying to do makeup days close to holiday weekends. And so I do think that was one of the ways we were trying to solve that, was to make it remote so that we didn't have that major absenteeism. I'm not saying I don't disagree though with Dr. Myers. We would all prefer in person as well. So like we know that that makes a difference. It's the reason we exist. So it's a very hard balance, but I just want to make sure we understand that that is part of the problem, is that if we don't get our makeup days away from those holiday weekends, then we don't get all of our students and then we still have a problem. So thank you.
I don't think there's anybody else with public comments, so we are adjourned. Thank you.